This is Gemara Yevamos Daf Pei. You are learning as in generously sponsored as an incredible schos for Shlema for Chadvalea Bas Saradina Mir Tashem. The learning of the entire Chabura should bring Chadvalea Bas Saradina an incredible and complete refuah shalema. We'd like to share some good news, Baruch Hashem, that we received that Chadvalea Bas Saradina is recovering, is doing a bit better. Some of the chemo did stick. They say it's Nisim. We know that it's the schos HaTorah. And Amir Hashem, the learning of the entire Chabura should bring Chadvalea Bas Saradina continued and complete refuah shlema. As well as as well as refuah shlema shel Yosef your faith Shmuel ben Tila and Tazim Chlas and Cham Basviva Sar Bluma Bas Mildachem Shishub and Malka Shechana Besoich Sha'ar Chayli Yisrael. We're holding on Daf Ayin Tesam and Beis, and we're 5 lines from the bottom, and Rabbi Yosef just retranslated Shitas or Rabbi Akiva in the Mishnah. So for one moment, let's just look back up to the din of Rabbi Akiva in the Mishnah, in which he differentiated between a Sris Adam and a Sris Chama, a Sris being a person who's incapable of having children. And Rabbi Akiva said that a Sris Adam could do chalitza because it was a time that they were kosher, and therefore the fact that now they're unable to have children, still they could do chalitza. Whereas a Sris Chama, which was born that way, can never do chalitza. The Gemara asked, and the Gemara was bothered that I don't understand. The din is that a Sris is lo yavai bekal, is not allowed to come into Klal Yisrael in Israel. Says the Gemara that Rabbi Akiva holds that chayvei lavin are the same issue as chayvei krisos, that both of them are not allowed to do chalitza and yibum. So why in the Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva allowing a case of a sris to do chalitza? So now comes along Rabbi Yosef, and we're 6 lines from the bottom of Ayin Testament Beis and Elam. Rabbi Yosef, he explains, Hai Tana Hach Tana de Rabbi Akiva Damri mechayvei lavin dishe'er ave mamzer, but mechayvei lavin greater lavi mamzer. When does Rabbi Akiva hold that chayvei lavim are the same thing as chayvei krisos, and the resultant is going to be a mamzer? That's only if it's a relative, it's a relation. But if it's a chayvei lavin by itself, it's just a lav. It's usher, but it's just a lav, not due to an arai, it's not due to relation, like we have by us, which is what? That the reason is because of a sris. In that case, Rabbi Akiva holds it would not create a mamzer. Asks the Gemara a question on Rabbi Akiva. 4 lines from the bottom. Ikri kan la'akim la'achiv sheim v'la barachiu. Asks the Gemara, I don't understand. The whole point, as we know from the beginning of the Masechta, is Yibum is to create the shame, to establish the name of the brother. But if this person cannot have children, what's the point? Amar Rava, explains Rava, Imkain in the Chayishik Sher Liyavam. Says Rava, startling statement, if what you are saying is correct, that once there's a moment in time that you're not able to have children, that totally uproots and makes Yibam null and void. So says Rava, 1 second, there's never going to be a woman in the world. Why? Because always one moment before one is nifter, he's quote unquote a sris chama. What does that mean? He's not a sris. What that means is the moment before death, a person is unable to have children, so he's at some level like a sris chama. So says the Gemara, if you're telling me a yesod, that any time there's a moment that you can't have children, it uproots and nullifies the entire Yibam and Zika. So what are you going to say over here? Every single person should have this issue. Explains the Gemara, the Rav Elazar, Peruka de Rava Pirchi. Should we say that Rava's answer is a kash and Rav Elazar? Explains the Gemara, Asam Kichishusa das Chilabei. Over there, the moment before death, explains the Gemara, the answer that many of us were wondering. The moment before death, the person's not really a sris chama. He's just weak. That's why. But it doesn't have the same level as sris chama, therefore it's going to be a different din. Says the Gemara, what does it mean, sris chama? On the last line of Ayin Tesam Beis, Yechidami sris chama, Rabbi Yisrael bar Yosef Amar Rav Yechanan, Kol sheloi ra'a shah achas bikashrusai. He did not see one moment of suitability. He was not able for any moment of his life, straight from birth. He was unable to have children. He was considered a sris. Manaya Dina, and how do we know? How do we know when a baby is born that this baby is a sris? When one urinates, but the urine doesn't come out in an arc, it sort of just trickles downward, that's a sign that the person is a sris. Mimai have, says the Gemara, where does this come from? Explains the Gemara 3 lines down of Apeyim and Aleph, that the mother baked bread at high noon. The mother had very hot conditions, and he drank this type of very, very strong beer. And these two things combined to make the child asris and unable to have children. Amar Rav Yosef, I know deshami la'ami. Says Rav Yosef, this is what I heard. Ami Damar, that he said, Kol shemimai imay lakoi. Whoever is hid and stricken from the mother's womb, v'lo yadana. My knew, and I didn't know what that was, but now I know. How do we tell? Because if the mother had these issues. Says the Gemara, 1 second. How do we know that the entire period of the child's life it was a sris? Maybe there was a moment of time that he was able to have children. Explains the Gemara, since the beginning and at the end we know he was unable to have children, therefore we're not worried. Masav Ramari, really, is that accurate? We check him for 3 times in the course of 80 days. And what do we check for? So what do we see? So we see that we don't assume that just because something is the way in the beginning, it stays that way. We see by an animal that we have to keep on checking the animal at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the 80 days. Explains the Gemara, Aver Chayshina Lekuligufa Lechayshina. When it's one Aver, when there's one problem, then we have to be worried that maybe it got better. But over here, it's not one problem. Over here, it's an entire ailment. The whole body has an issue. He's a sris. In that situation, we do not say that we're concerned that it will be better. That we do not say that there's a concern that it'll get better in between. Continues the Gemara 10 lines down, Peyam and Aleph and the 2 dots. Rav Eliezer Oimer Loiki. Rav Eliezer argues and he says that the difference between a Sris Chama and a Sris Adam is different. Says Rav Eliezer, the difference is that a Sris Chama has the potential cure. It can get better. Not a Sris Adam. V'Reminu asked the Gemara, Ben Esrim Shanav Leivi Shtei Zayers, if someone is 20 years old and still has not brought the 2 pubic hairs, is not shown that he's a Gedayla, that he is a Ben Esrim Shanav Leivi Shtei Zayers, if one is nifter and his brother has not brought Shtei Zayros yet, Yavi Araya Shubin Asim, we bring proof that he's 20. V'hu Saris, and he has the din of a Saris. And therefore, what is the din? What is the story? If his wife, meaning if someone is nifter and his wife is 20 years old and she has not brought Shtei Zayros, Yavi Araya Shehibas Asim V'Islandess, that she is an islandess. And similarly, so the first part of this price that teaches us that a sris is someone of 20 years old, a man that has not had children, not able to have children, whereas an islandess is a girl at 20 years old in a similar scenario. Or Beishamei Oimrim says Beishamei Zev is Zeb and Shemoina also. Says Beishamei, we don't wait for them to be 20, even when they are 18 years old. That is when the din of islandess, the din of sris applies. Rav Eliezer Oimer, Hazachar Kedivei Beis Hillel. When it comes to Hazachar, then it goes by age 20. When a Keva Kedivei Beishamei, it goes by age 18. What's the reason? A woman matures faster than a man. So it asks the Gemara, what do we see over here? We see that a Sris Chama, according to Rav Eliezer, can do neither. Cannot do Yimar Chalitza. Whereas in our Mishnah, what did Rav Eliezer teach us? Rav Eliezer taught us that a Sris Chama could get better, so he could do Yimar Chalitza. Amar Rami Bar Dikuli, says Rami Bar Dikuli, Amar Shmuel, Chazer by Rav Eliezer was Chazer. And now in classical Gemara form, whenever we say someone is Chazer, we have to ask, which was the Chazara? There's a Mishnah, there's a Braisa. Which one did he back down from? Which one was he Chazer from? Tashama explains the Gemara. Teitan Rav Eliezer Omer Sris Chama. The price explicitly explains that the Sris Chama could get better, could get cured, like our Mishnah taught, and therefore that's the one that could do Chalitza. Rav Elazar Amar Lo'ilam Lo'i Hadar Bi, says Rav Elazar, no. Says Rav Elazar, really, Rav Eliezer never retracted. And when the second brisa that Rav Eliezer differentiated between 18 and 20 years old, that was regarding being a bar oinshim. Avol chela mi ben shteim esrei v'yoyim echad ad ben shmoina esrei v'noldu b'simone esres ula'acher mikane v'shtei sayrus Rav Amar Nasi esres mafreo Shmuel Amar kotan haya ba'isa shah. So it says the Gemara, I think I skipped a little bit. One more time. Yeah. Period. Yeah, let's go back. I'm sorry, I read that incorrectly. Says the Gemara. And that's how we answer up the two braces. Itmar, says the Gemara, a new case. A case regarding a Sris Chama. If the person ate chela of the forbidden fats from the age of 12 to 18, Ad Ben Shemona Esri till he was 18, and then he has the simanim of a Sris. And then he brings Shtei Sayers later on in life. Rabbi Mardas says, Sris Lamafreo, he shows us that he always was a Sris back from when he was 12. Shmuel Amar, no. He was a cotton. So Machlaik is Rav and Shmuel, whether we say Lemafreya retroactively, he has the din of a Sris or not. So Maskivla Rav Yosef asks Rav Yosef L'Rav, La'aylinis Maskivla Rav Yosef L'Rav, according to Rav that just taught us that Lemafreya, you get the din of an Aylinis. Aylinis L'Rameir Yehila Kanas. According to Rameir, there should be a Kanas. Whereas we know the Rameir holds no, there's never a kanas by an Elenus. Amrle Abaya mikatinu so yatzasala bagar. Says Abaya, you know what Rav meant? A unique chiddush that this person goes straight from katanos to bagrus. Usually the girl is a katan until age 12. From age 12 to age 12 and a half, the girl didn't have a naira. That is the age in which there is a kanas of someone is ma'anis mefater, as we'll see in Hashem in about another month when we get to the Gemara Zin Ksubis. And after 12 and a half, she did a bagaris and no longer a kanas. So the Gemara asks that there should be a kanas, and answers the Gemara. Abaye says no. This girl jumps over a stage in life. She goes straight from kandos straight to bagros. Amar lei kol ki hani mili ma'al yisay yizamri mi sham ai. Says the Gemara. Kol kihani, excuse me. Amrle Abaya, yeah. So Amrle, what did Rav Yosef respond back to Abaya one more time? Excuse me. Kol kihani, Mili, you're right. All these wonderful things you should continue saying in my name. Mishamai, in my name. Where do we see this? The Tanya has learned in a brayse inas ris nidan kiben seira umayrer. Why not? When they have the lower beard referring to the pubic hairs, and we see what we just said, that the katanus, you go straight from kandos to bagros. And that's going to be the reason why there's never going to be this stage of a naira. Amar Rav Avua, says Rav Avua, Simani Yisris Vailanis Uben Shmoina Ein Oisin Bahen Maisa Achu Ben Esrim. Says Rav Avua, if we have a one who is a Sris, and now we're going to figure out what exactly are the simanim of the Sris and the Ailanis, and the child of the 8th month randomly is thrown in here, we'll see what that means. What's the halacha? Ein Oisim Ben Maisa. We don't act upon these details ad Shuben Esrim until they are 20 years of age. So that's the first part of the brayse, and I have to figure out what exactly this means. So first the Gemara dives in and says, "O Ben Shemaina Mikachai, what's going on over here? You said that we have this child that's an 8-month-old baby, a baby born seemingly after 8 months in the mother. But I asked the Gemara, is there such a concept? Could a child be born after only 8 months pregnant?" But Tanya learned in a rice in the last line, Ben Shemaina Reu Ke'ever Kevin. If a child is born after 8 months, it's a din of a stone on Shabbos. You can't touch it. What could the mother do? The mother could lean down and nurse that baby. But says the Gemara, but what do we see? We see that an 8-month-old baby is considered to be dead. So why are you telling me that that child can live? Answers the Gemara, no. And of course, we all know that nowadays with science, it's not the case. Babies all the time live Baruch Hashem from 8 months. Answers the Gemara, you know what's going on over here? The case over here is that it's not an 8-month child. You see that the child is indeed fully developed. What does it mean, an 8-month child? Doesn't necessarily mean you know the mother is pregnant for 8 months. It means that it's not a fully developed child. And Rabbi Omer, simanim alav, if you have simanim, simanim of the hair and the nails, shaloi gamru. And therefore it's obvious that time of the gamru, amina nahabar zayinu, v'ishtayu dishtayu, that we assume that what? It's really a 7-month-old child. And ironically, Vizman Chazal, a 7-month-old baby was able to live. An 8-month baby cannot, and a 9-month baby, of course, could yes live. So says the Gemara, because we see the appropriate simanim, you know, we say, really, this child is a 7-month-old child, and the baby just waited for another month before being born. Exactly what that means, a bit difficult. But continues the Gemara, 6 lines down of payment base of the a woman went overseas, and she stayed 12 months overseas, and then she had a child. And he said the child is kosher, even though this woman was not with her husband in the last 9 months. So how could she give birth? Still, they said it's kosher. Says the Gemara, Keman, is that Rebbe Dam Mishtahi? Maybe this is also like Rebbe, just like Rebbe said when a baby's born after 8 months. Really, it's a 7-month-old baby. Just the baby was waiting in the mother. Says the Gemara, perhaps the same thing over here when a baby's born after 12 months. Really, it's a 9-month baby from the original husband, just the baby who was waiting to come out. And then it only fits with the opinion of Rabbi. Explains the Gemara, Kima Dikar Rav Shimon Gamliel Damar Mishtayi Kerabin Avad. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel as well holds like Rabbi, so it's not so schwer that the Brisa seemingly is saying it didn't only like Rabbi, because it's not true, because Rashbag agrees. The Tanya Rashbag Omer Kol Shalom and Yoim Ba'adam. No, a nefel, and therefore there is that possibility, and that's the reason why we do not have a din of a nefel, and that is at the end of the Brisa. Tanu Rabbanan, says the Gemara 10 lines down of payment base. Ezeu Sris Chama. Now we're going to find out what exactly is this entity called a Sris Chama. Kol Shuben Asher B'Lavi Shtei Sayers, 20-year-old, it does not have Shtei Sayers, doesn't have 2 pubic hairs. Even if he brings the hairs afterwards, still is the din of a Sris. Hareu Kisris Chol Devarav. Ve'elu Ein Simanim, what are the Simanim of a Sris? Kol She'ein Lo Zakein, there's no facial hair. V'Sayroi Loiken, his hair is very soft. Ubesari machlik, and his skin is very soft. That what's going on over here, says Rashbak, he's meimav, she'ein meimav, is water, referring to his urination, does not produce resichois, foam. As we've seen already, urinates, that doesn't make an arc, it just trickles down. That what happens is his shechva zara semen is very watery. The urine doesn't have that potency, doesn't spoil. Another shot, and his body does not have any steam, literally. His voice is soft. And you cannot tell the difference between a man and a woman. So when this man talks, he sounds like a woman. That is all the defining characteristics of a sris. When we see a man has these issues, continues the Gemara, what is an islandess? Similarly, Kol Shibas asked him 20 years old, Sarah says she doesn't have 2 pubic hairs. Even if she brings it after, she's 100% an islandess. What are the siman? She has no breast, and it's painful when she has relations. She doesn't have an abdomen like a woman. Her voice is very thick. She sounds like a man. Itmar. And those are all the different simanim. Itmar says the Gemara, simanei sres, Ravuna Amarachu, kulam, you have all the simanim. So that whole list that we had, do you need to have all of them to get the din of a sres? Or once you have one of them, you get the din of the sres? So Rav Yochanan says even one of them, Una says all of them. Says the Gemara, if the person has Shtei Cyrus, has 2 pubic hairs, then the only way they can have a din of a sres if they have all the other characteristics. What's the machlekes? They don't have Shtei Cyrus. Ask the Gemara, check out Rav Nachman, he basar ma'aloi havel. that go check out if his body gives off this heat, and then he'll give him over to my daughter. So what does it sound like? Come on, it sounds like you're Rav Huna. It sounds like he's passing like Rav Huna, that you need all of them, and therefore if there's one detail that they're not like a Swiss, that means automatically he's kosher. Says what's going on over here? Rav Nachman had spikes of his beard. He had some shtei cyrus, and that's the reason why if one of the other items was absent, automatically you would not have a din of a sris. Hasris l'chazlam izami v'chem eilinus. We saw in the Mishnah, Katani says the Gemara 3 lines to the bottom. Sris dami adailinus. My eilinus b'dei shemayim, afsris b'dei shemayim. Ustamak Rav Akiva. And this fits with the opinion of Rav Akiva, like we started with today. Dam b'dei adam in b'dei shemayim. Loi, the din of sris is only b'dei adam and not b'dei shemayim. And we'll pick it up from Asris shachal tivimta loi pasla mirz Hashem in the next year.